G'day guys and gal! Despite a lot of loud voices shitting on Primaris Marines on the daily, you just can't seem to get enough of them. Last video, we looked at how the loyalist chapters reacted to their new Primaris brothers, but due to them being on the same team, the most dramatic reaction was Gabriel Seth bashing the shit out of one of them. But as Gabriel is a flesh tearer, a chapter known for losing their marbles and massacring their allies on the daily, this was a pretty tame overall event. The Traitor legions, however, had more passionate reactions. After all, they are the ones getting killed by Primaris, so it makes sense that they're a lot more opinionated. Some of them think the Primaris are gross, others think they're trash, and others genuinely respect them. Before we get started, after a nice long run, I am officially retiring the Majorkill Fantasy Knight Mini. Not because I'm trying to neglect my small, but very cool and highly attractive Age of Sigmar and Fantasy fanbase, but because I genuinely reckon I could have better models made that could lead your armies. Hence, flash sale. Cutting the price down by nearly 50% on the fantasy models, so if you wanted to get your hands on a limited edition legacy model, then now's your chance. To get good value on shipping, it's a great opportunity if you pick up one of the many other awesome Majorkill minis alongside it in stock. All prices are in Australian, so that's like another 30 to 40% discount you're getting. Today we'll dive through the lore to uncover what the various reactions to Primaris Marines the Traitor legions have had. Let's get into it. First things first, we'll do a brief overview of what a Primaris is and why people are having strong reactions to them. When the Emperor created the Space Marines, they were not perfect like the Custodes were. They were mass-produced and almost rushed. By the time they were deployed, there was not enough time for the Emperor to go back to the drawing board and fix some of their glaring issues. Hence, after the Horus Heresy, an oversized mechanical hentai monster named Belsarius Call was given access to the Space Marine blueprint, as well as orders from the Ultra Daddy to improve upon existing Space Marines, making them bigger, faster, stronger, and most importantly of all, way less prone to submitting their souls to the forces of hell. Then Ultra Daddy got shanked in the throat and died for a little while. Call, however, was like, fuck it, and he kept working on the Primaris project, eventually completing it and creating hundreds of thousands of new elite Primaris Marines, which were unleashed upon the galaxy upon Guilliman's timely resurrection. For the loyalist chapters, some reacted with absolute joy because, suddenly mankind wasn't totally fucked. Some reacted warily, but soon embraced the new Primaris as their brothers, and others thought the Primaris were a perversion of the Emperor's great works, and only accepted them into their ranks because the Custodes threatened them with violence. So how did the Traitor Astartes react? Well, the Alpha Legion were one of the first Traitor Marines to fight the Primaris. They were alarmed by how much hardier and powerful these new Marines were. What's interesting though is that you would expect the Alpha Legion, who out of all the traitors are generally accepted to be the least corrupted by chaos, to be impressed, or to seek the Primaris technology for themselves. After all, they stole the Raven Guard's Raptor Marine blueprint during the Horus Heresy, which was an upgrade similar to that of a Primaris. But in reality, they were disgusted. They saw themselves and all the other Astartes created by the Emperor to already be perfect and to not require any improvement, especially improvement by some uppity Magos. However, it is important to note that these Alpha Legionnaires had just been thrown into the warp at the end of the Horus Heresy and were only just spat out then, so they had only been against the Imperium for like a couple years. The rest of the Alpha Legionnaires might share a similar opinion, but it's likely they'll have less respect for the Emperor. Overall, it was cool to glimpse the mindset of Horus Heresy era traitors. Despite their hatred towards the Emperor, those traitors still respected his works. What about the Plague Marines? After all, they have spent the most amount of time fighting them out of all the legions. Well, they haven't really been explicit about it. Plague Marines are fried in the brain and they stink like shit, so they probably don't pick up on the subtle differences between Primaris and Firstborn Astartes, as much as a hyper-analytical Alpha Legionnaire would. In saying that, there has been a few comments. A Plague Marine scoffed at the Primaris and basically said that they were naive little children, as he had been fighting for thousands of years, whilst they had only just recently been allowed out of stasis. Well, that Plague Marine ended up choking on his words as he was soon killed after. The Iron Warriors had a reaction alright, and unlike the Plague Marines and Alpha Legion, who were either metaphorically or literally full of shit, the Iron Boys had an interesting point. A mortally wounded Iron Warrior encountered a Primaris, and he began to laugh at the irony before drawing comparisons to the Firstborn and the now extinct Thunder Warriors. The The Thunder Warriors were the Emperor's first super soldiers who did a lot of the heavy lifting during the Unification Wars. They were larger and stronger than Astartes, however their creation used pretty shit technology and was rushed. Hence, despite each one being a beast in combat, they were prone to degenerate cancers as well as deteriorating brains. If the Emperor was going to conquer the galaxy, he couldn't do it with a bunch of retarded meatheads who were all slowly dying. Hence, once their role in his vision was complete, he had his custodians genocide them. So the dying Iron Warrior was basically saying that the Firstborn Marines were now the Thunder Warriors, on the verge of being exterminated to make room for new and improved versions of themselves. Does he have a point? Kinda. The Emperor didn't kill the Thunder Warriors because he thought it was funny. They genuinely were made completely obsolete by the Space Marines and they were becoming too unstable. He had already stopped creating them some years before their destruction, but there were still too many around. Whilst the Primaris are an upgrade of Firstborn Marines, the Firstborns don't have the inherent fatal flaws that the Thunder Warriors had. On top of that, the Firstborn Marines are able to be turned into Primaris. There is also no one in the galaxy who could genuinely give the order for the Primaris and Custodes to kill all the Firstborn. Even if Guilliman did that, very few chapters would comply, and even if they did, all the Imperium would have achieved is wiping out most of its best fighters. So whilst our dying Iron Warrior made an interesting point, it wasn't very valid. So it seems like the Traitor Legions as a whole aren't huge fans of the Primaris, and wish they didn't exist. Makes sense? After all, they do get killed by them regularly. However, there are some who think different. Fabius Bile, who's kinda like the evil mad scientist version of Belsarius Cawl, is fascinated by them. Fabius is an Emperor's Children's Space Marine who is as old as the Imperium itself. He's a mad genius with absolutely zero ethics or restrictions who has a huge hard-on for cloning shit. He's cloned various Primarchs to varying success, and even has the ambition of cloning the Emperor himself. The dude has even created Mankind 2.0, which he calls the New Men, which he hopes that one day will replace all humans in the galaxy. However, all of this shit is expensive, hence he has to maintain favor with the Traitor Legions in order to continually be given resources and to, not get murdered on sight. Yeah, he's pissed off a lot of people. As such, Fabius is really keen to kidnap and dissect some Primaris so that he can potentially improve upon his new men whilst also potentially creating Primaris Chaos Marines, something that the Traitor Legions would suck him dry if he managed to achieve.
But Majorkill, you said most of the Traitor Legions hated the Primaris Marines. Why would they be happy to get their own version?
Timmy, you meddling little shit! If there is anything we know about Chaos, especially Chaos Marines and Primarchs, is that they are all massive hypocrites. They'll pretend they don't give a fuck about the Imperium's shiny new toys until they can play with them, then bam! They'll pretend they were advocates from day one, and anyone who calls them out on it will get kablamoed. Also, Abaddon himself literally told Bile that Chaos needed its own Primaris, so they can't really argue with that. There's a scene where we get to gauge the reaction of a Wordbearer when he first goes up against the Primaris. As he and the Primaris are dueling, the huge standout to him is how resilient the Primaris are, thanks to one of their new gene seed. Like, as they're fighting, he disembowels the Primaris, and the Primaris just kinda cops it and keeps fighting. In the end, the Wordbearer wins, but just to be safe, he cuts the dead Primaris' head off. The Nightlords had a pretty standard reaction. They watched them fight from afar and were intrigued and impressed by their war gear and overall size. When they eventually fight, they cop a lot more casualties than they had predicted. They became pretty wary after the encounter and were actually quite concerned overall. For the other Traitor Legions, there isn't as much juicy goss about how they've reacted to Primaris. World Eaters and other Core Knight warbands probably don't even notice, because they've got fucking nails in their brains. After all, it was a Core Knight Berserker who was the first to unsuccessfully attack Guilliman just after his revival. I haven't been able to find anything on how the Thousand Sons or Emperor's Children have reacted, which is a bit of a shame. It would be really sweet to see what the evil space wizards had to say about it. So from what we've seen, the traitors have been a mix of impressed, curious, concerned, and downright disgusted. Pretty much exactly the same range of emotions as the loyalist chapters, which is interesting to see. As more and more lore is dropped surrounding the Indomitus Crusade, we should be able to see more and more reactions. If I've missed any, then throw them down in the comments below and I'll take a peek. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. Only $1 per month give you access to a boatload of non-family friendly artwork. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more Prime content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.